time as well, so they had the potential to withstand lightning strikes. And lightning strikes are one of the things that, even before the Native Americans were burning these prairie savannas, it was one of the things that, you know, you think in the east lightning doesn't create fires. It actually can, because most trees like this are out in the open, are very vulnerable to lightning strikes, to wind damage. You get dead limbs up there, you get old growth up there that dies out. Lightning hits that, it will ignite it. And even though it starts pouring the rain, there's so much heat involved with the lightning bolt that it would just be like pump. It would just smolder in there. And when the sun comes out and it warms up, and the winds start to blow, it starts igniting it again. And if you have any kind of dead grass material on the ground, you can start a prairie fire here in the east. Although most of the fires were probably done by the Native Americans, the Wyandots and all that.
I was cutting the blackberry out and the poison ivy out from around it so it had more light.
I saw it the other day. I don't know. Last spring I found a green dragon.
Yeah, it's over that way.
Yeah, I didn't find it then. I thought I took...
Yeah, but it's probably died back.
Tendency to happen. Well, I thought I'd still see leaves a little bit.
Well, I mean, in the woods it probably will be, but not out in the field, I really think. But
it's right by that elderberry.
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't find it.
Well,
I was pretty excited when I found it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. Yeah, a guy was telling me about that. So.
But it's like the only one. Trash already.
Litter campaign? Somebody dropped their program?
Yeah, that could be mine. Yeah, I think it came out of my pocket. I
Okay. There's all kinds of stuff in here.
What
I wanted to show you is that we have 4 different species of milkweeds that are on this prairie. This, of course, is the more common one. Most of you are familiar with it. This is the one that's so important to the monarch butterfly migration. This is the common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca. Syriaca means of Sicily, which is interesting because when Linnaeus was developing the binomial classification system, which is, you know, pre-named genus and species, he had students collecting all over the country. And basically, like a lot of professors, labels sometimes got mixed around. And so he thought the specimens that he had been collected in Sicily. And so he named it Asclepias syriaca of Sicily. And when he published Species Plantarum, which was the first publication of all his binomial work, the species of the world, that's what he published it as. And once you do that, that name sticks. A little bit later they found out that this doesn't grow any place but in North America. It's really interesting. I brought some of these from home to take a look at because typically, again, the leaves, they tend to be fairly hairy on the backside. It's kind of a yellowish green. The seed pods are very distinct. They have this spiny green covering. Now what's interesting, there was a botanist that some of you have heard of, William S. Sullivan, who was the son of the founder of Franklin, later became Columbus. He botanized extensively west of Columbus in the Darby Plains in a prairie very similar to this. In fact, you had the Sandusky Plains, which were over 300 square miles. You had the Darby Plains, which was almost 400 square miles. And then down in towards Circleville, you had the Pickle Plains. So you had some very large, and they were all very similar. These were areas that were once glacial lakes, very poor drainage. So what perpetuated the prairie species and kept the forest from taking them over is that in springtime, they'd be totally flooded. It'd be too wet for trees to become established. But by fall, when the droughts came in, the ground would break, it would be subject to prairie fire. So only plants that could survive flooding in the spring and extreme drought conditions in far in the fall could survive here. And that was a bill that was built by things like burdock trees and like the prairie grass. But right down the way here, we've got another milkweed that's here on this area.
This here that we're walking through, all this stuff, this is called dogbane. And it is a really fluffy seed, just like this. Yes, right here. Yeah.
When Sullivan was botanizing the Darby Plains, he came across this milkweed. He looked at it, said, this sure looks a whole lot different from that common milkweed. And that the leaves are shaped differently. The leaves, this is the common milkweed. This one has a very succulent, leathery leaf. Look at the difference in the seed pod. They don't have this bristly appearance. Very different. And so they're red. And so he worked at this and he said, I just can't key this thing out. So he collected a specimen and he sent to the Harvard Herbarian, Asa Gray. Dr. Gray was the curator of the Harvard Herbarian. He said, dear Dr. Gray, please use the resources of the Harvard Herbarian to help me identify this plant because I can't key this out. In time, word came back from Dr. Gray and said, Dr. Sullivan, the reason you couldn't key this out, this is a species new to science. He said, you're the first one to discover this. And since you sent me the first specimen and you're the one to discover it, I'm going to name it in your honor. So this one, instead of Asclepias styliaca, is Asclepias sullivantii, the solvent milkweed. It goes throughout the entire Prairie Peninsula area. In fact, it goes all the way out to the Dakotas. And in most states where people who have no idea who William Starling Sullivan was, they just call it simply the prairie milkweed. Very distinctive species. And we find it in Ohio and all that prairie. Very distinctive. The type specimen is still at the Ohio State University. It says 1844, William Starling Sullivan, found close to Columbus.
What I was showing you last night.
Oh, okay.
Indian grass.
Yeah.
And this one here is called blue stem.
Oh, okay.
You guys are really tough. You're out here in the rain. I'm proud of you. Dang. Huh? Get up close. Yeah, well, I got these allergies. I'm so grateful that all palms getting washed out, but I haven't been able to walk. When John Mack did his survey, he came up with 5 basic plant communities here. No Savannah. You see here, the Mesic Prairie. Mesic just means little moist prairie. It's not too dry, not too wet. And that's basically the same thing here, dominated by the tall prairie grass. Now Crawford County has had drought. These are 2 of the most common tall grasses and tall grass prairie, but they're about half the size they should be. Normally they'd be up here. And we have this one, which you can all see. Notice the flower heads on this. We'll go to seed. There's a bit of imagination. You can see why one of the common names is what? Turkey foot grass. Or big blue stem. The other ones, I think, is a much prettier grass. Has a nice plumes, and it's also is in bloom. You can see the yellow anthers on it. This is the Indian grass, the Gaston mutans. And these are 2 very common tall grasses and tall grass prairie, along with switchgrass, which we don't have to see very close by. So this was the other community. Now, he also said another community was the wet prairie. And we're not seeing that right here quite yet. There's a little bit of it back over in here. We'll be going to an area. And then sedge meadows, areas dominated primarily by sedges, which we'll see. But the 5th one was pothole marshes. Potholes are wetland depressions in the prairie, very much we see the Dakotas. The biggest one's right over there. You can see the white marker. That's John's indicator of water level. And that normally in the spring would be flooded. Waterfowl would come in there. There's a lot of emergent vegetation around it that's typical of what you see around the potholes out in the Dakotas. Problem run into is that at some point in time someone put a major drain line, pipeline, probably about 24 inches or bigger through there, which is draining surrounding farmland because this is a very poorly drained area, which is why we have prairie here. Problem is, over time, that pipe broke. Now there's a big hole there, so we have a major rain event. Water collecting off these fields above us come down, hit that pipe and the hole in the pipe, and they well up. And they flood that whole basin for a day or 2, and then everything drops down and drains out. So one of the challenges will be to protect this, continue to protect this, will be to somehow work that pipe so we're getting water off the adjacent farmland, but at the same time keeping that wetland pothole a wetland pothole. That will be a challenge.
How about a flapper valve?
About a what? A
Flapper valve.
Yeah, we talked about that. In fact, Bill Fisher and I, we're going to talk with the county engineer and see, let them come up with some ideas as well. But yeah, it'll be something like that. Yeah. It can be done, but someone needs to address it. It's never been addressed.
Right.
I can't say never. It hasn't been addressed in years and years.
Smell this.
Well, what is that?
It's called mountain dew. They're little white flowery flowers.
Now which? Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, but the work done over at Fielder Plains and put in a different genus, the bees. And I don't know if it's out or not. The other algae is the same genus. It's the Prairie. Yeah, it's the same genus, but it's like Scenaria variety something.
Oh, okay.
You know, classified, but that work was done back in 1940, so I don't know if it's the taxonomy is still valid. Right there by the pink flag, you'll see one of the biggest challenges that we have in managing the site. We've mentioned when John Mack did his work here, he didn't report the presence of this species that you've all seen on the roadside, the teasel. Teasel is a non-native species that was brought into this country early in the 1800s and was used in the carding wool industry. Basically, they would take these heads, these bristly heads, cut them in two, put them on these great big wooden cylinders. This was used for carding the nap, for teasing the nap of woolen goods. It would increase the insulation ability, it would make them a finer fabric. The problem was, when they replaced these carding machines with metal carding, they used this plant between its stakes into the wild. It's an amazing thing. In fact, this is called gypsicus, which is the Greek word for the teasel. The problem is each seed head has lots and lots of seeds, and even though John Mack didn't report it, it probably was here. The sheep probably brought it in. You can see these big green rosettes. That's what this is. This is a biennial. That's next year's plant. It'll throw a flower stalk. By Dick Mosley, by the red flag, there's one that we didn't get. We left it for today so you can see it. They get much taller. It's in flowers. It's kind of interesting. It starts blooming right in the center, and the flowers go from top to bottom, so sometimes you wind up with like 2 rows of flowers on it. But it's terribly invasive. The sheep would have eaten these rosettes. So if it was here, it just wasn't obvious. But now the sheep are gone. It's exploding. If you go to Fielder Plains Wildlife Area, there's a similar species, Gypsicus ciliatum, the cutleaf. And it's even more aggressive, and these things place these rosettes which prevent, start containing any seeds that germinate or anything else and sprout up. So it's really important that we stay on top of it. This is a biennial, it's doable, but it has a seed bank of about 7 years or so I've read. So we're going to have to continue working on it. So we need volunteers, and we've had. Last summer we had about 20 people here, 2 different days, and we collected I don't know, something like 60 of these 30-gallon garbage bags with nothing. We just cut the heads off. Just the heads. That's how many. We actually got a handle on things. This year, we collected probably 6 bags of it. We still have explosion rosettes. If you're interested, we really need help getting these out. I'm sorry? Well, what we're doing is typically cut on an angle. It has a big taproot. Cut deep enough to cover that taproot. And you just pull the rosette out, and it doesn't disturb the soil, so you're not disturbing more of the seed bank. And that's what we've been doing. Because once it gets to this point, you've got to cut the heads off and remove them.
In theory, could you bring the sheep back?